Hey guys, it's Landon. But I was thinking about topics for like another slideshow video, and the topic of convergent evolution came up. And convergent evolution is something I've talked about before on SFT back 2019, about 3 years ago. I made a slideshow discussing convergent evolution and how that was evidence for creation, actually. And I look back at it, the slideshow I'd made at that time, and I was looking at it. I said, this is pretty good. This is something I need to make my entire video on, like a standalone video. Because the original video I did, I just streamed it during one of our hangouts with SFT. Everybody else, that's back when we did it was called like the Talk Creation series, something like we did it was like me, Jeremy, Donnie, Matt, Neff, and I just made a slideshow going over all these examples of convergent evolution and how it was really good evidence for creation. But yeah, so I basically took a lot of what I had used on that old slideshow and redid it and added to it and made an entire presentation that was going over why convergent evolution has theistic implications to it, and even if it was universal common descent, the existence of convergent evolution would show that it would imply that there is a divine force guiding evolution, and I'm going to show that, talk about that in my presentation. I guess I'll go ahead and get started. This is a slideshow I made called The Theistic Implications of Convergent Evolution, and there's my title page. It's got the placental marsupial mammals and their convergent evolution counterparts, and you see striking similarities between there's a placental marsupial mole, anteater, mouse. I'll go over into that in more detail. But yeah, let's go ahead and begin. I'm going to show why convergent evolution is actually evidence for creation. Even if it was evolutionary creation, it will still be evidence nonetheless, because the existence of convergent evolution flies in the face of all that we're taught that evolution really is, and that it's a mindless, goalless process. But we find that it repeats itself quite often with strikingly similar designs and body plans. And I think it's time we bring this piece of evidence to light and show that God can be detected all over the place. There's no escaping the conclusion that there is a God. So here we go. To start, what exactly is convergent evolution? Science Daily defines it as the process whereby organisms not closely related independently evolve similar traits as a result of having to adapt to similar environments or ecological niches. Similarly, Merriam-Webster defines it as the independent development of similar traits or features as a body structure or behavior in unrelated or distantly related species or lineages that typically occupy similar environments and ecological niches. So basically, the same definition pretty much. I just wanted to include two to make my point. So there's the definitions for that. I'm sure a lot of you probably will, already have an idea what it is, but I just wanted to explain this in detail. Okay, and what is evolution exactly? Despite the obvious atheistic undertones, evolution is almost always described as a goalless, mostly random process in which random mutations provide raw material for biological change to occur, with natural selection promoting or weeding out the newly conceived mutations depending on their usefulness and the overall circumstances. Proponents of evolution are quick to point out that evolution has no goal, supposedly, in parentheses, and the unspoken truth is that claiming such a thing, or claiming that, well, actually, I should have added something on there, I forgot about that, but the claiming that evolution does have a goal would be tantamount to heresy. Because I've seen people say well, doesn't evolution have a goal? And like on these web question asking websites and so on, and they get pretty nasty about it when someone suggests that evolution has a goal. And even claiming that evolution does have a goal, they get shut down pretty quick by these really rabid atheistic evolutionists. Orthogenesis is an older theory of evolution that posits that life is evolving towards some kind of goal. This hypothesis is getting little credibility in the modern day, with its Wikipedia page labeling it as obsolete. Maybe it's not quite as obsolete as they think. Before I go any further, I'm not a theistic evolutionist. I believe universal common descent is false. However, the case I'm trying to make here is that even if universal common descent was a fact, the phenomenon of convergent evolution necessitates that evolution was guided by cleverly constructed laws set in place by an all-knowing creator. Of course, convergent evolution is also great evidence for YECs, young Earth creationists, and I guess old Earth creationists too, mind you. As we predict that God would reuse biological designs much in the same way that an engineer would repeatedly reuse and re-implement the same few design plans and patterns. The bottom line is that the biological world screams design, regardless of whether or not common descent is true. So that's my main point for this video, and it's highlighted in this slide right here. This is the main photo from my Evidence for Creation Facebook group. I like it. I just wanted to include it there. So now we're going to go to convergent evolution and structuralism. The idea of structuralism was, or this idea, or part of, I know other people have argued similarly, but this one was put forward by Michael Denton, a biochemist, agnostic, and intelligent design proponent who authored the books Evolution, a Theory in Crisis, and Evolution, Still a Theory in Crisis. Evolution, a Theory in Crisis was one of the really old, original ID books. It was a stepping stone, for the ID movement, I guess you could say. He wrote another one in 2016. To put it simply, this view of biology and evolution that he's advocating for posits that life evolves by following set in place laws of form. In other words, the evolution of certain designs are seemingly inevitable, and as Denton speculated, if we discovered life on other planets, we might find vertebrates similar to those on Earth because they reach their current form, I guess you say, because they evolve via natural law that dictates how organisms can evolve. So basically, he's just saying there's organisms are evolving, due to set in place like laws of nature, kind of how we have like the laws of the universe. And he's kind of saying that shows there's order and purpose. He's not a neo-Darwinist. He doesn't believe that it could have happened under the neo-Darwinian paradigm. So he believes there's these natural laws and these laws of form. So it would make sense that this view of structuralism, this ID view, meshes with the idea of convergent evolution because, of the existence of it actually, because you have these designs that keep being repeated and these features that keep evolving over and over with astounding similarity in these unrelated lineages. You'll get these body plans and these features, biological features, and they just keep arising. And it seems like it made more sense with a structuralist view in that there's laws that are governing. They're saying, okay, it's inevitable for them to evolve this way. It's just how these laws were set in place to allow for these same designs to be repeated, and that's just, they have to do that, and that's why they're doing it. And here's the third paragraph right here. I believe that the phenomenon of convergent evolution does mesh well, as I said. And it's basically repeating what I just said. It's unrelated organisms allegedly keep evolving similar traits. In short, with this view, there's even more natural order and fine-tuning in our universe, extending to living organisms. So just how common is convergent evolution? The short answer is very common. If we assume evolution is true, and I put parentheses, is a disclaimer, it's not. It's in universal common descent, at least. If we assume evolution is true, it has repeatedly fashioned unrelated organisms to be strikingly similar to each other, and has caused complex, intricate body plans and features to arise numerous times independently. I provided a really cool example here. Take Venom, for example. In a paper titled Animal Venoms, Origin, Diversity, and Evolution, they conclude that venom has evolved independently roughly 30 times in the animal kingdom. It says a remarkable convergence can be observed in the composition and bioactivity of venoms. I included the link to the paper. And also relating to venom, there's another paper. I think it's an article that leads to a paper, actually, but researchers have argued that viper and cobra lineages evolved their venom-injecting fangs independently. So they evolved. Not only did venom supposedly evolve 30 times on its own, it's supposedly a random, process. It just acts upon random mutations. It's not supposed to think or, have these plans laid out and keep repeating itself necessarily, but it keeps repeating itself. So 30 times you've had venom evolve. I mean, venom is not, it's not a trivial matter, really. I mean, it's pretty intricate, like chemical compounds that are designed to kill or defend, or kill prey, or defend, for animals to defend themselves. And yeah, these compounds and these venoms are very fine tuned, for what they do. And the fact that they just keep coming up, it just seems very unlikely that it would evolve on its own 30 times, or maybe even more than 30. Not unless evolution, there's something else at work here that's governing how evolution works. Divine intervention, I should say. It seems very likely. It seems to be hinting at that. Well, it seems to be hinting at anything except the standard inadequate neo-Darwinian mechanisms of random mutation, natural selection. I mean, it's random mutation, and I don't see how that will lead to venom evolving 30 times because it's random. But also relating to venom, like I said, they had the viper and cobra lineages that were separately evolved the fangs. Both these are really interesting to me. The more examples I provide, the more doubtful it will become that this is a product of neo-Darwinian mechanisms, because you have the fangs evolving twice independently, 2 lineages, venom 30 times. It gets a little bit implausible for naturalistic evolution as the evidence piles up. And here's a few cool photos before we continue. There's snake fang, spider fang. The jumping spider looks cute, but then they conceal those sinister looking fangs, which is kind of funny. And now for some more examples of convergent evolution. A lot of the rest of this slide shows me providing examples showing how common this is in the natural biological world, because I really want to make my case that this is not something that naturalistic random evolution would accomplish unless there's something guiding it. Wings have allegedly evolved on 4 different occasions with insects, birds, bats, and pterosaurs. Yeah, there's a picture of each of them. Of course, the pterosaurs are extinct, so sorry guys, I couldn't get a photo of a live one, but I wish. Well, I don't know if I want to get too close to some of the ones that are extinct. They're pretty much like dragons almost. You could probably ride one. I mean, when they wouldn't let you, but they were absolutely gigantic. But yeah, apparently the wings, we've talked about in my evolution's emergent software conundrum video, I talked about how much would be required for birds, to gain the mental software, along with the like the hardware to, adapt and evolve to where they can fly. I mean, it seems so implausible just for once, but for 4 different lineages, 4 different groups, it seems doubtful. And some more winged examples. They got the ruby-throated hummingbird and the hummingbird hawk moth. They have similar roles in their environments. There's some aquatic examples. Morphological similarities between sharks, ichthyosaurs, hoping I'm pronouncing that right, and dolphins. They all have the same layout, I guess you could say. Apparently, based on what I could find, the evolutionary narrative is that reptiles returned to the sea 3 times independently, the ichthyosaurs, mosasaurs, and plesiosaurs. So, and you'll see these guys, they'll come up some more later. But apparently they believe that all 3 of these lineages, all 3 of these animals in their groups, they each journeyed back to the sea independently, evolving to live in the water, which is kind of interesting to me. That it just starts to seem implausible after a while. This is a really interesting one. This is one I included in my initial slideshow back in 2019. Milk production has allegedly arisen independently in mammals and spiders. Apparently, the article says some spiders produce milk, and it's more nutritious than cow's milk. That's the last animal I would expect to see giving milk to their young. That's kind of interesting to me. That's more of a mammalian trait, so it's kind of interesting how spiders have evolved. Well, they allegedly evolved that too. They're not very closely related to mammals. All right, on to placental and marsupial similarities. The similarities between these are uncanny and pretty. Some of these are pretty shocking. For many placental mammals, there's a corresponding marsupial mammal bearing strikingly similar characteristics. For example, the Thylacosmilus left is the marsupial counterpart to the also extinct Smilodon. They both have the protruding teeth. They're both cat-like. Well, the marsupial's cat-like. Of course, the Smilodon is a cat. And I don't know. There's just so many similarities, like down to the detail, like the last detail, most like smallest detail. You don't. It seems implausible to me that this would happen without this. I just don't believe this would happen without some kind of guidance or some kind of natural law set in place. Because they look very similar, even down to the teeth. I just think that's very interesting to me. Other marsupial and placental counterparts. A lot of these slides I'm showing now are recycled from my initial slideshow. There's a flying squirrel in a sugar glider, I believe. I think it cut off the part of the photo for some reason. But yeah, one's a marsupial. The one on the left is marsupial. One on the right is placental. And then you have the marsupial mole, the North American mole. And then compare the sugar glider and flying squirrel to the extinct mammal Valadicotherium, I believe, and the Draco lizard genus. They're both gliding organisms. I think they all kind of follow a similar plan in their biology, so apparently it's repeated itself at least like 4 different times with the gliding mechanism. And the flying squirrel and the sugar glider, they look really similar, actually, just in appearance, for someone that didn't even know the two were separate species. They might see 2 different pictures of them and say, oh, they're the same, animal. They might not even be able to tell, that they're different, because they do look very remarkably similar. The marsupial mole looks very similar to the placental mole. So much so, like with the flying squirrel and the sugar glider, I don't know if people could tell them apart. They might both have just assumed that they're placental moles, basically. But yeah, the similarities they're getting pretty interesting here. I just thought it's just a very cool thing for me. This phenomenon is it's amazing how people can see these strikingly similar, organisms that are supposed to be unrelated, and see how similar they are. They don't assume that maybe there's some kind of natural law, at least, guiding them to look like that or something. For me, I know that they were designed, that way, because I'm a young Earth creationist. But then you have people that they'll look at stuff like this and they won't even consider, like Michael Denton's structuralism. They're just like, no, this is all random mutation, natural selection. It's just all random. Evolution, they want evolution to be random and goalless, but at the same time, it seems like they subconsciously want to be smart and have some kind of foresight. Interestingly enough, I'm talking about the evolutionists or the atheistic evolutionists more so. But yeah, let's go move on. Okay. Here's on the left are the placentals. On the right are marsupials. The gray wolf and the Tasmanian tiger are similar. Ring-tailed lemur and the bear cuscus. They have a similar looks about them. I believe they behave similarly too. They have similar roles, or have them, in the animal kingdom. And the domesticated fancy rat and the marsupial antichinus, or chinus. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. At least one of the pronunciations is correct, but those are also very similar. Another cool example. And this is a newer example I discovered not too long ago. It's filter feeding. In a Science Daily article titled Ancient Sea Creatures Filtered Food Like Modern Whales, the author states that ancient giant marine animals use bizarre facial appendages to filter food from the ocean. The new study, led by the University of Bristol, describes how the strange species called Temessiocaris, I'm hoping that's right, use these huge special appendages to filter plankton, similarly to the blue whales do today. The other quote is saying that the arthropods were the sharks and whales of the Cambrian era. Both sharks and whales, some species evolved into suspension feeders, became gigantic, slow-moving animals that in turn fed on the smallest animals in the water. So apparently the Cambrian had a whale-like creature too. Sounds like something Jackson Rowe might be interested in. I guess he probably knows about its existence. And there's the extinct Cambrian creature, the blue whale. And then there's the appendage from the Temessiocaris compared with whale baleen, which I thought they looked pretty similar actually compared to each other. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Pill bugs and pill millipedes, they're unrelated, but they both supposedly evolved to curl up in a ball. They both look nearly identical to the layperson. Unless you've studied this, you probably would assume that they're of the same kind or they're same genus, or whatever you would choose to describe. But yeah, they're I use this in my slideshow also, the 2019 one, but I found a better photo that compares to my original photo. I just had these two photos on the left, but then this one I found earlier has these on the right, showing how they both curl into a ball similarly. And I remember we used to, like at my grandma's house, we would have we called them roly-polies, and you would pick them up and they curl into a ball. And so that's what I believe that they were, the roly-polies that we were picking up were in these right here on the bottom, I believe, or a variation of that kind, at least, And to conclude, warm-bloodedness. I know I've given a lot of examples. What's funny is that I spent a lot of time getting these examples together, and I feel like the presentation has gone by quickly. It's kind of interesting and ironic. I gave a lot of examples, but I'll conclude with this. I just thought this would be a good place to stop. The consensus is that warm-bloodedness evolved twice in the mammal and bird lineages. There's also speculation that warm-bloodedness evolved at least twice independently in mammal ancestors. So not only did being warm-blooded evolve, the consensus is that mammals and birds evolved them separately. There's also speculation in that article I linked that in mammal ancestors, warm-bloodedness actually evolved twice. And I believe in that article I looked at it and said, like, oh, this suggests that warm-bloodedness is basically an easy trait to evolve. You just need the right amount of selection pressure to make it happen. And I'm just like, you got to have a mechanism for that first. Just saying it can happen doesn't mean it can happen. Not without some kind of guidance or something driving it. It's just a lot of assuming, a lot of just so story material here. Interestingly enough, the ichthyosaurs, which I've mentioned several other times, they were found to have, they were like a aquatic reptile. I mentioned those earlier. They look kind of like sharks and dolphins in their biological layout and how they looked. They were found to have whale-like blubber, actually, hinting that they were also warm-blooded. So apparently that might have evolved again way back in the past. So there might be another case of warm-bloodedness evolving, which I don't know what kind of responses I'll get from people, evolutionists who watch this video. They'll probably just be like, well, it can just happen, or it happened, didn't it? I've got a few ideas in mind how they're going to respond, but I'll move on for right now. So the takeaway from all this is that evolution is alleged to be a random goalless process. For such an allegedly mindless process is surprisingly and shockingly consistent, as evidenced by my previous slides. If young Earth or old Earth creation, if they're correct, we'd expect to see biological traits and features reused in the same way that an engineer would reuse optimal and efficient designs. This is where the young Earth and the old Earth creationists agree. We would expect to see reused designs. That's because in the same way, engineer, whoever would use, the same, they'll use what works and what they like repeatedly, in their projects and in their careers and whatever they're doing, or let's say an artist, using the same art style in different paintings. I guess that's another analogy. But yeah, we would expect to see these reused designs and biological features. If theistic evolution is true, and if Michael Denton's view of structuralism is a reality, we'd expect to see nature repeatedly give rise to familiar and identical designs and unrelated lineages. This is what theistic evolutionists, they would predict, I guess, if they believe, if they're the group that believes evolution was guided, somehow. And if you're a structuralism proponent, you expect to see nature in quotation marks. You'd expect it to repeatedly, like I said, give rise to familiar identical designs. That's what we like. If both of these two right here for the young Earth and old Earth and theistic evolution predictions, convergent evolution is what we'd expect to find. We predict to find something like that. But with naturalistic evolution, I don't think we'd expect to see convergent evolution on such a grand scale. After all, evolution isn't an entity. It doesn't think, and is only supposed to act upon random mutations. Despite that, it often seems to reach the same conclusions again and again. Let me repeat, despite it not thinking and just acting upon random mutations and the whole process just being messy, sloppy, and random, despite that, it often seems to reach the same conclusions again and again. That's pretty smart for an unguided, uncreated process. If we live in an uncreated universe, it sure is filled to the rim with fine-tuned efficiency, not just with the laws of the universe, those laws are extending, to biological organisms too, which is what Michael Denton was hinting at the whole time. Considering the aforementioned facts, definitions, and evidence, and looking at the three possibilities listed, which seems most likely to you? Which one seems most likely? You can leave that in the comments, whatever you'd like to do. But yeah, I'm just going to repeat, the evolution is supposed to be random and goalless. There's not supposed to be any thought or foresight behind it, but it's very consistent. Like I said, Venom evolved 30 times independently. Just think about that. 30 times. That on top of all the other examples I gave, which aren't even all the examples of convergent evolution. I mean, I could have gone on. I could have kept finding slides and gone on for like an hour or more doing this probably. Just think about that, though, how consistent it is. And ask yourself whether or not that hints at there being either repeated designs in nature and or a biological, teleological type law, that's set in place by an intelligent agent that dictates how organisms evolve regardless of neo-Darwinian mechanisms, or is it all just coincidence? Is everything just a coincidence on top of the fine-tuned universe? Did abiogenesis just get started on its own? Did evolution just happen to repeat itself? I mean, let's be a little bit realistic here. That's what I want to say to the proponents of naturalistic evolutionists, the proponents of naturalistic evolution. Sorry. yeah, let's be realistic about this. I mean, this is a little bit, it's ridiculous to believe this all just happened. This just isn't plausible. So yeah, there's my slide for that, and here's my concluding statement here. I hate how this says the streamer is sharing your screen. I was gonna hide it, but I was like, no, but then it does get in the way of some of my slides. Oh well, it's already almost over, so next time I'll just do it, I guess. But yeah, the God conclusion is inevitable. Yes, of course, I'm going to end with perhaps my favorite Bible verse of all time, which is Romans 1:20. God's handiwork is apparent, it's there for all to see. As I provide evidence for that in my slides and my other videos. I think my favorite video, I think, for like evidence for creation that I've done in terms of evidence and what's contained within the video is probably the intelligence and microorganisms video. But I think this is also a very good video that shows as shown in detail a lot of evidence for creation, and has provided lots of examples. But yeah, God's handiwork is apparent, and it's there for all to see. I believe that we are, as I've said in my atheism critique video, provided some links, that we are all wired to believe that God exists, and people suppress the knowledge of God. They just want to suppress him in general for various reasons. But despite that, I believe that we all do know that a God exists. I believe it was something that it was something we're all born knowing, and that we can see his fingerprints on what has been made in the world around us. So we are without excuse. We are truly without excuse. So, this is the Romans 1:20 NASB. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, that is, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived, being understood by what has been made, so that they are without excuse. So that is Romans 1:20, NASB version. It's just amazing how God is so evident through what has been made. It's amazing it's so cool to get to learn about him and his creation, by studying the creation, I guess you could say. But yeah, that's Romans 1:20. It's probably my favorite Bible verse ever. I've used it in multiple videos I've done. But yeah, I know the StreamYard thing is blocking out the what I wrote. It kind of reminds me of what do you call it? With the way it's blocking out important stuff. It makes me think of the Monsters Inc. Movie, where at the end of the movie, Mike, his face is blocked off by a barcode. They're on the magazine cover, and his whole face is covered by the barcode. That's kind of what it may remind me of, because it's just covering this information that's that was intended for everybody to see. This is kind of a humorous thing to think about. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for watching this presentation. I guess I'll stop sharing now. That was the whole presentation. It went by faster than I thought it was going to. I mean, I hope you liked the presentation. I just thought it was something that needed to be discussed. I think it is. I think what I said in the video is true. I think it's good evidence for creation. But yeah, I enjoyed doing another presentation video. I haven't done one. I think the last one I did was the atheism critique video, which was back maybe during the summertime of last year, I believe. But yeah, I really like making I like doing the slideshows and, having the photos to go along with what I'm saying. I really like doing that, but I need to figure out what I'm going to do for another slideshow video. I don't know. But yeah, I guess that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and God bless.